I'm here to tell you to never ever stretch before sport. The style of stretching is static stretching. That's what I'm talking about, where you're holding a limb for a period of time to try to lengthen the range of motion in that joint. You're not stretching muscle, you're stretching the fascial tissue that surrounds the muscle. The muscle is only compliant to what the fascial tissue allows it to do. So if the fascial tissue is compliant and gooey and it's not adhering to some other tissue beside it, then the muscle is free to fire. It's free to contract and lengthen. It can do it through a range of motion that the sport requires. So if you're trying to stretch when you're cold, then the fascial tissue is going to be cold, and treat it like toffee. You got to heat up the toffee, then you can stretch the toffee. Then it's more resilient. You might want to do that at the end of a marathon instead of before the marathon. Reason number 2 is your fascial tissue is throughout your entire body, and you want to treat it like it's an elastic suit. Every human in the world is wearing a superhuman elastic suit, and you don't want to stretch out your elastic suit before you do your marathon. If I use marathon as an example, because you want to have elasticity, you want to have recoil, you want to bounce off the ground like a gazelle or a kangaroo. You don't want to be running a marathon like a sloth, where you're grinding it and your muscles are getting super tired because there's no flight phase. There's no chance for your muscles to turn off and then turn back on as your leg hits the ground. So you want the on and off. And that also gives your joints a chance to open up in the flight phase of a run, get some nutrition, and then compress against the ground and on and off there. So if you're grinding it out because there's no elasticity, then your joints could degenerate a little bit faster, but also you're going to get super acidic and you won't be able to run as far because you'll be energy expensive. There was an article on marathoners that were stretching out their hamstrings really long just before the marathon, that they would be energy expensive for the first 30 minutes of that marathon until their fascial tissue would go back to its normal length for recoil, so they can draw the bow on their legs and then let go. They were pretty elastic. So there's that reason. It's not a good use of your time, and you're stretching out your springs or your elastic suit. Another reason why you shouldn't stretch before your sports, because it's turning off your computer. It's down-regulating your nervous system. It's shutting down your body. And when you're doing sport, you want to turn on the computer. You want to blossom those nerves. You want to get ready for sport. You want your body to be excited. What do you do instead? Since we're talking about preparing your body for sport, I always start my classes or personal training sessions with balance exercises. And that's important because it's waking up your nervous system. It's waking up your hips and your ankles and your mid-back. If it's the first thing in the morning, even better reason to do that. After some balance exercises, you've woken up, and then I'll get into some dynamic stretching. And that's different than static stretching because there's range of motion and load with your muscles. And when you're loading your muscles through range of motion, the fascial tissue that weaves through the muscle gets stretched and excited and warmed up as well. So then you only want to go through a range of motion that's applicable to that sport. So if you're doing a marathon and you're running and your hip comes this high and your knee comes this high, in the sport, you never ever want to stretch that joint past the range of motion that you use for that sport. It's like basketball players, if they want to jump really high, you never want to overstretch the hamstring because they jump off of their hamstring. It's their spring. So don't go past the range of motion. So you've done some balance, you've done some dynamic stretching, and then you can get into more sport-specific range of or sport-specific warm-up after all that. Whereas if you're doing that marathon, you can do some light running after that, get ready, get your body, telling your body that this is what we're going to do. And then I would get the heart rate up after that, maybe doing some light intervals on some hills, just to get to the point where you're starting to get that bead of sweat. Now your nervous system is fully turned on. You've turned on your computer. All the systems are good to go.